Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Monday, July 28th, 2025. This year is just blowing by. I can't believe we're already at the end of July. Wild. And there's lots going on. No arrests for the people who interrupted a church service to throw smoke bombs at the church leader's head. He's not a pastor, I guess, but it was a church service. They were worshiping, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that seems strange that the only people getting in trouble for that whole debacle is the church. Here's a fine for, allowing somebody to throw a smoke bomb at that guy in your church. So how dare you do that? They're trying to ban VPNs in the United Kingdom because that's the first thing anybody with sense would get after the United Kingdom doing what they've done to their internet, which is censor the crap out of it. Soon coming to Canada. I hope I'm wrong about that. Fingers crossed. Police presence for a Christian concert. Again, we're going to be talking about all of that stuff. People calling for canceling the Alberta Legislative Grounds has been offered as a place for them to gather in Alberta, and people are calling for that to be canceled on public safety and all of that kind of concerns. So that's pretty wild considering all of these people are ignoring the pro-Palestinian nonsense that we're forced to endure. Cambodia and Thailand enter a ceasefire due to trade with Trump. EU makes a deal with Trump. Elon Musk is a defense contractor who now has a contract for his AI with the United States government, and I'm sure that other governments will follow. What's going to happen is the AI is going to construct reality and then bring you on board to reality. And if it isn't successful at convincing you that it's right, it'll give you a label. And man, try and get that off, right? Difficult. What else? August 1st trade deadline in Canada looms, and we don't have a trade deal yet, but everybody else has got a deal. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, trade deals all around everywhere, but not Canada. Trump is not really interested in talking to Canada. And I think Lutnick shows the hand and the reason why. The reason why is our economy is not doing well enough. Trump hasn't taken notice of our economy. What oil? We've got all the oil we need, says Trump. No problem. And so here is Trump talking about the successful deal with the EU and Ursula von der Leyen. And here's this.
Things are 750 billion, 600 billion, opening up the country. We are agreeing that the tariff straight across for automobiles and everything else will be a straight across tariff of 15%. So we have a tariff of 15%. We have the opening up of all of the European countries, which I think I could say were essentially closed. I mean, you weren't exactly taking our autos, you weren't exactly taking our agriculture. And then you would have smaller things, but for the most part, it was closed. And now it's open. It's open for our companies to go in and do a good job with it. I think you'll like them. I think you'll like it. And we will, very importantly, they'll be investing a lot of money, but the military is a big number, but that's one number we're not determining. It's going to be whatever it is, but they're going to be purchasing hundreds of billions of dollars worth of military equipment. They're very important. They're going to purchase $750 billion worth of energy. So that's going to be great. And $600 billion worth of investments into the United States over and above what they have. So, and I think that basically concludes the deal. I mean, those are the main factors. I don't think there are too many other factors, other than we're going to get along great. And we have a great relationship now with NATO, which is largely the same. I mean, not exactly, but pretty close, right? Largely. And with NATO, as you know, they're going up to 5% from 2%. And the relationship is very strong with NATO. So I just want to congratulate you. I think it's great that we made a deal today instead of playing games and maybe not making a deal at all. I think it's
Canada.
I'm going to let you say, but I think it's the biggest deal ever made. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Big deal, says Trump, but he says that about everything. He says it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Dan McTeague says Canada fooled around, and today they found out. And Robert says Carney's big play was to pivot from the United States to the EU. The EU just pivoted from Canada to the US. Carney is an embarrassment. So we got screwed. Oh no, right? That was our plan, guys. We were going to isolate Trump. What's with this trade deal? I thought you were going to isolate Trump like I was isolating Trump. Uh-oh. So now Canada's tried this isolate Trump strategy, and EU said, "Oh, you want to make a deal? Let's make a deal. Sounds good. We love American trucks. Send over those Ford F-150s." And Canada's left out in the cold again. Uh-oh. That sucks for us, right? And I think Australia is getting the canola market that was formerly Canada's. And so that sucks for us. Kirk says the EU has agreed to purchase $750 billion. Did you catch this in the middle of Trump's speech? $750 billion worth of energy from the United States. That sucks for us, right? We could have sold them that money, and that could have been something that our country made a deal on, and we had, product to export and stuff. But instead, our leadership was too busy putting their elbows up, or whatever the heck thing that they're doing these days. Let's remember, says Kirk, that European countries came to Canada for energy deals, and Canada's Liberal government told them there is no business case and proceeded to re-elect the same buffoons and Mark Carney, who wants to carbon tax it all, making it uncompetitive. What a loss for Canada and a huge win for the United States. Yeah, very, very interesting what's going on, and people are just eating our lunch left and right, and we're supposed to just sit here and grin like idiots, and it sucks. John Carney says, by my calculation, the trade deals with the United Kingdom, Japan, and the EU cover more than 51% of global GDP. This is huge. So Trump said this is the biggest deal ever made, and maybe, right? Like it might be the biggest deal ever made, and just because of all of the different components of the deal and how much of global GDP it covers, I thought maybe Trump was being bombastic, but maybe he was just being technically correct as well. So pretty wild stuff. That's a big deal, right? And are there more big deals to come? The markets are responding to this in a very positive way. The Kobulesi letter says breaking S&P 500 futures open above 6,400 for the first time in history after President Trump announces a trade deal between the United States and Europe. And that's very, very interesting, right? The markets love it. The markets love it. They said, give us more, sir. Brian Lilly says, Trump says he has had no luck with Canada. Meanwhile, Canadians in the know are telling Brian Lilly that Carney's team is doing a very poor job in the talks. And there's more details in the Toronto Sun. I'll let you read that for yourself. But I'm not surprised by this. Up till right now, I thought the strategy that Europe was following and Canada was following with Europe, in lockstep, if you will, was an isolation strategy against Trump. And now it seems like Europe said, everybody's making a deal. We better make a deal. And they made a deal. And Canada's like, what? And so I'm sure Ursula and Carney are going to get on the phone later on today. And there'll be words saying something to the effect of, what the heck, man? And Ursula will say, don't worry. Now the new plan is make a deal with Trump. Kirk says, weekend recap, Canada debanked a conservative lawyer, got fat gazans, fined a church $2,500 for having a Christian musician, and America signed a $1.3 trillion trade deal. So, darn. Why did we get cursed with the terrible leadership? Kevin Vung says U.S. tariffs with Japan, 15%, EU, 15%, Canada, 25% on non-USMCA items, 35% after August 1st, 50% on aluminum and steel. And so Canada doesn't want to respond to this. This is a threat. We had an opportunity to deal with the threat. They got together on the 23rd on the 23rd of July. After finding out about this on the 11th of July, I reported it on the 11th of July that Trump was going to slap these tariffs on August 1st. Carney didn't even convene anybody until the 23rd. And I don't know what happened with that. Nothing happened with that. And then fast forward to now, and we're getting higher tariffs on a whole bunch of products, not USMCA products, but still it's impactful and it's still going to drag our economy. Here's Lutnick, and he says Trump's not interested in, small economies like Canada, right? That's between the lines, but I'm just filling it in for you. Here we go.
Mr. Secretary, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Great to be here.
Okay, August 1st, that deadline is coming within a matter of days. Will there be any more grace period, any more extensions, and what deals are closest to getting done at this point?
Okay, so no extensions, no more grace periods. August 1st, the tariffs are set. They'll go into place. Customs will start collecting the money, and off we go. Obviously, after August 1st, people can still talk to President Trump. I mean, he's always willing to listen. And between now and then, I think the president's going to talk to a lot of people. Whether they can make him happy is another question, but the president's definitely willing to negotiate and talk to the big economies.
Mr. Secretary, welcome back.
So that's an interesting situation, right? And President Trump is saying he's willing to talk to the big economies. Maybe we register. Maybe that's us too, but I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure. I don't know why the voice and the audio weren't synced up there. Apologies about that. But Lutnick is saying this is impactful, and there are people being left out in the cold. And where are the people being left out in the cold? The Elevate podcast says America's economy is $28 trillion. Canada's economy, $2.2 trillion. So very respectable. The population of the United States is 343 million people. Population of Canada, 41 million people. 43 if you include everybody who's here, ish. So we're not even close to the United States at this point in time. Not close. Canada trades with the United States $1 trillion. Canada trades with the EU $240 billion. The gaslighting needs to stop. Mark Carney says we're building Canada strong. That means being our own best customer, using Canadian workers and Canadian resources to build the major projects that will transform and unite our economy. It's nonsense. It's practically nonsense. Like in the sense of, can they actually deliver this? I think the answer is absolutely not. And I think that they already know that. And they're just trying to sell us a story. But anybody who knows maths can understand that this story is false. It's false. Here is Disclosed TV. Cambodia and Thailand agree on an immediate and unconditional ceasefire with effect from midnight tonight. This was due to Trump fashioning deals with both Thailand and Cambodia. There were trade deals, and he came in and said, like, if you don't stop, I'm going to stop these trade deals. That's what I was reading this morning. And so they both immediately stopped. And so interesting, right? Trump is an impactful person in control of what's going on in the world in a very, very, very palpable way. He's very, very hands-on, very hands-on. Dan Albus says what he says versus what he does. So Carney says we're building Canada strong, right? I just read that tweet. But meanwhile, we're giving $1 billion to China for ferries. So we're building Canada strong by giving China billions of dollars. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. We're going to talk about this Christian rocker, and then I'm going to cut the stream because I'm just reducing the amount of free show. So sorry about that, everybody, but it's got to be done. Sean is highlighting sad when you need so much police presence at a church. And so Efren says, Sean's Christian service is about to take place here in Toronto. Here's how it looks so far. A lineup attendees wait for doors to open despite condemnation by the media and state government. So here's a police car, and there are multiple police cars and cruisers around, and there's a big crowd of people ready to go in. It's interesting. The venue itself was packed, and inside, I think I've got footage of that. Hold on here. Oh, no, not quite yet, but I do have footage during this series. Tom says, imagine the outrage of a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu or a declared atheist or just anybody threw smoke bombs into a mosque during prayers. Can you imagine? Everybody would lose their mind. People would just pearl clutch like mad. What about the Muslims, right? It would just be crazy. As we saw during the hijab hoax, as we saw during multiple other times. But if a Christian church burns, nobody does any of that. And that's notable, right? Anyway, back to Tom. Only one religion and only one political group in Canada can use violence to advance their cause, while the government of Canada supports this violence with funding or by ignoring the violent events. Yep. And isn't that wild? Isn't that an interesting situation? Because that's not the intent of our legal system. The legal system is meant to keep everybody on an even keel, as equal to each other. The prime minister, a homeless 18-year-old, they're supposed to be legally the same, right? But it's not the case anymore. Dean says, I haven't seen any media reports on the arrest of the Montreal terrorist who smoke bombed a Christian church, or any of the Islamic radicals and anarchists who illegally and violently protested a Christian church event. It's almost like Montreal police are refusing to investigate. Isn't that weird? So the only person who did something wrong was the church who allowed the musician to be there for these protesters to smoke bomb. How dare they, right? That's the church's fault. It's your fault you did this. Here is Sean taking the stage in Toronto to a packed house. And so they were able to get their concert done last night. Here we go. So there you go. People are happy that they're able to attend their concert, and I'm glad free speech won out. I wonder if they're going to get fined. Andrew Lawton says 17 years ago, the Canadian arts community and political left raised holy hell about a bill from the Harper government that would have blocked tax credits for film projects that went against public policy. The proposal, which the Conservatives ultimately scrapped, was lambasted as censorship. It was no such thing, of course. The government has no obligation to fund any particular pieces of art. Punishing people for what they create is another story. I'm reminded of this as I see what's happening with Sean, a singer I'd never heard of before this morning. As I write this, I've never heard his music or seen his show, which the City of Montreal claims runs counter to the values of inclusion, solidarity, and respect that are championed in Montreal. The church that hosted his concert has now been fined for doing so. The city was explicit that Sean's artistic content is the problem. They're not even pretending it has to do with zoning technicality or some such. The city is making a values judgment, which anyone is entitled to do about artistic and political expression, except they tried to shut it down altogether. This is a violation of freedom of expression and freedom of religion. I will always stand up for both. I stand for freedom of expression on principle, not because I necessarily agree with how one uses it. This is key here because I know someone will invariably point to a statement from Sean that they find offensive and accuse me of agreeing with it for no other reason than I support his right to freedom of expression. That's not how liberty works, and I have no interest in playing that game. Here we have a government body actively intervening in an artist's performance. This is, by definition, censorship. This should outrage Canadians. If it doesn't, rerun the scenario in your mind with a hypothetical artist you agree with, because this sort of overreach could be weaponized in any direction. We cannot allow Canada to be a place where politicians decide how churches worship, what views people are allowed to have, and what art artists get to create. Yeah, I agree. Good job, Andrew. I'm glad he's speaking out. I'm glad there are people who are speaking out. On the other side, here's a senator in Alberta or a senator from Alberta who is wanting Sean's access to the legislative grounds where he's going to run his concert in Alberta cut off. And Dre is highlighting this. The witch hunt continues now with two SGLBT Alabama Ding Dong champion and Alberta Senator Christopher Wells calling for conservative Christian Sean's worship concert to be canceled in Alberta as well. Petition to stop the attacks on religious freedom. You don't have to sign petitions. The petitions collect your name and then guilt you into giving money. Like, I feel like there's a better way to fundraise. There's got to be a better way to fundraise. Anyway, I digress. It's interesting that there are agents active everywhere to oppose this stuff that seems very benign. And Andy Lee offers a window into who's doing this. Andy Lee says, you know who always targets religious institutions to eradicate rival powers and solidify authority? Communists. I agree. I think it's very communist-ish. It's not very good. Lion Advocacy says, does anyone know the Montreal bylaw that would require a religious institution to get a permit to sing songs on private property? I get it if the concert is on public property. Then again, the city has been granting apparent exemptions to some groups in this regard. Link to the Montreal permit website for events on public property. It's interesting, the legal justification. I don't think there is one. I think that the city of Montreal is going to fail. I think their lawsuit or their fine is going to not be paid, and I think that they're in the wrong. And it'll be interesting to see how this all turns out. All of that said, I think our institutions are corrupt to the bone, and so I hope that sanity wins out in this case. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, with that, we've got to end the stream. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we will catch you tomorrow. And for everybody else, we will carry on. I'm always worried I'm going to accidentally hit the stop recording, and that would be a giant pain in the butt because then I'd have to finish recording the show, and then I'd have to merge the show in a post-production kind of editing room, and then I'd have to upload the show, and it would be very annoying. But I didn't do that today, so thank goodness.